evening. I hope you've had a great day of keeping yourself entertained. And my family had a good day. We packed lunches in the morning over at school. So maybe if you went to school and got a lunch today, maybe it was packed by your teacher. And then after that, we took a walk near the lake and explored a new trail that we hadn't been on before. So that was really fun to spend some time outside. And we'll go ahead and read together chapter 28 of Prince Jen. Last time we read, Moxa and Mafu had just told Jen the terrible news that his father had passed away of his illness that he had had previously. And so now Jen, remember, is going to be king of Tang. So they were telling him that he may need to go back to the Celestial Palace for a little while. So this chapter, chapter 28, is called Merchant's Journey South, Celestial Palace in Chang'an, and Various Welcomes. Now, soon after we read our chapters and finish our book, I will be starting us on parts of our project. So we'll have some drawing that will come up soon, and you'll be writing a little bit about what you draw to explain your thinking. But we'll go through those step by step, and I'll post those on Classroom too for you. So here we go. 3 merchants left Nangpei at dawn. The innkeeper felt sorry to see them go. They had paid handsomely for services required. One had been ill but was now recovered, and all had set off south on business. What their business was, the innkeeper neither knew nor cared. He did wonder, idly and briefly, why these gentlemen traveled without servants or carriage driver. The stubby, paunchy one took the reins himself and seemed quite skilled at it. The innkeeper did not inquire why he performed a task more befitting of a groom or household servant. The long-legged one struck the innkeeper as a trifle eccentric, ever muttering about his nose and ears, but wealthy guests were entitled to be eccentric. So if you're thinking about these characters that the innkeeper was just wondering about, you know that the stubby, paunchy one would be who? If you said Mafu, you are correct. Remember, Mafu looks a lot more prosperous now because he's been selling things along the trade route. Also, he has a friend with him in the carriage, and that long-legged, eccentric one would, of course, be Moxa. As for the youngest, he said little, appearing withdrawn, the result, no doubt, of illness. A junior colleague, the innkeeper assumed, not having been informed that the young man happened to be the new king of Tang. This secrecy had been Jen's choice. As he told Mafu and Moxa, the last thing in the world he wanted was to proclaim his identity. Remember, in the past, that hadn't worked very well for Jen when he stepped up and said, well, I'm the prince. Other people didn't respond very well to that, remember. Without proof, Jen said, whenever I tell anybody who I am, either they take me for a madman or I end up in trouble. Can you see us walking into the official's yamen and trying to convince him? He'd throw us all in prison, or worse. Mafu disagreed. The palace has to know you're alive and on your way back. Otherwise, the ministers and counselor will be flapping around, making a mess of things. No telling what these fools will be up to. We'll send word privately. Jen finally consented. After their first halt, after leaving Ningpei, he wrote a message in accordance with Mafu's suggestion. Mafu picked out a sturdy, reliable-looking fellow among the servants at the village inn, brought him a horse, handed him a purse of money, and ordered him to ride for Chang'an as fast as he could. He'll be there well ahead of us, Mafu said. Since he can't read or write, he has no idea what he's carrying and won't gossip about it along the way. He'll do as he's told. He won't make off with the horse and money because he knows he'll be paid again doubly once he reaches the palace. Well, excellent plan, put in Moxa. Greed will keep him honest. Jen was satisfied with that and not satisfied at all. Do I return as a king? No, I return as a failure, Jen said in bitter self-reproach. My father depended on me, but I turned away from my journey. The gifts he entrusted to me are lost. Every one. I've even lost Voyaging Moon. You'll find your flute, girl, Mafu insisted. You have royal power now. Once home, you can order searches in every corner of Tang. Notify every official in every yamen. She's bound to turn up somewhere sooner or later. We might even come across her on the way, added Moxa. The nose, the ear, the eye are devoted to your service. In short, I'll keep on the lookout for her. Jen had to admit that Mafu was right. As king, Jen commanded more resources than before. The sooner in Chang'an, the sooner he could use them. In all haste to reach the capital, Jen urged Mafu to continue on the roads past nightfall and to set off again before daybreak, with fresh horses wherever they could be found. Sometimes they galloped long stretches without a halt, one taking the reins while the other two slept. Near the end of their longest day, the weary travelers came in sight of the Lotus Bridge and the city's outskirts. Our messengers got there safely. Mafu pulled up the horses. We're expected. Look, they've sent an escort to welcome us. Out with you, Divine Majesty, and submit to the formal greetings. Moxa then leaped from the carriage and was eagerly beckoning to the escort. By the time Jen climbed down, with Mafu beside him, Jen stood, hands in sleeves, while the warriors galloped toward them. Are you Jen Xiaoye? The troop captain reined up his mount. The young lord prince. Before Jen could answer, Mafu stepped forward. No, he is not, Mafu retorted indignantly. What discourtesy is this? Dismount, Captain. Pay respect properly. He is no longer young Lord Prince, but his divine majesty. The troop captain seemed familiar. Jen had seen him before. Among the palace guard? Li Kuang's warriors? The memory teased and eluded him. Now, if you're thinking that that was figurative language, you are correct. So you know that a memory is not a human, and because it gave the memory human qualities of teasing and eluding someone, that would make it, if you said personification, you're correct. There is no such ruler, the officer replied. Jen suddenly recalled the cavern, the bandits. The man had been one of the yellow scarfs. Jen cried a warning to Mafu and Moxa. Too late. The troop had surrounded them. There is only one king of Tang. The warrior drew his sword. King Natha. The prisoners were to be granted indulgence by the grace and generosity of Natha, king of Tang. The troop captain informed them of this as they were herded under guard into the celestial palace, down corridors usually bustling with officials, but now empty and echoing. Indulgence? Muttered Mafu. Grace and generosity? We're prisoners, no matter how you look at it. He's doing us the favor of keeping us alive, I suppose, Jen said. He could have had us killed out of hand. Then, Mafu remarked, be sure he's saving us for something equally nasty. The nose of suspicion failed, Moxa groaned. I should have smelled a trap. Natha would have caught us sooner or later, Jen consoled the dismayed robber. As we're alive, we might still have a chance. They halted at a heavy door where two warriors stood guard. The troop captain unbolted it and gestured for them to enter. The portal swung shut behind them. The lamplight showed chambers sparsely furnished. The room held another occupant. Young lord, why did you not tell me who you were? An old woman hobbled toward Jen, who stared a moment before recognizing her. Plum Blossom? You brought my fragrance of orchid to life again. Plum Blossom would have kowtowed, but Jen took her hand in his own. The child is well then? Your gift restored her, Plum Blossom said, and she flew away with it. Even so, I must believe she lives happy wherever she may be. The old woman's words puzzled him as much as her presence there. Jen asked no further explanation. His eyes had gone to the slender figure who had stepped from the adjoining chamber. He cried out as Voyaging Moon ran to him. His months in the Kang, his hopeless searching, his eyes. Mafu's eyes popped. Moxa grinned all over his face. The heart of devotion swells, exclaimed the mad robber. The eye of tender affection sheds a tear of joy. But if your sweetheart's in the palace, your majesty, it occurs to me she's a captive as much as we are. I couldn't warn you, Voyaging Moon said. Natha told me you were on your way. The message you sent fell into his hands. He and his warriors already captured the palace. They attacked Chang'an when your father died. Plum Blossom and I had no chance to escape. Natha had secret dealings with some of the officials, so I heard. Voyaging Moon went on. They practically invited him in. As for you, they thought they were well rid of you. They knew you were supposed to learn how Yuan Ming governed his kingdom and do likewise in Tang. A king who knew how to rule was the last thing they wanted. They were afraid you'd be wise enough to kick them all out. Natha promised them. That makes no difference now, Jen broke in. We have to find a way out. We're together. That's all that matters. I lost you once. I won't lose you again. For the rest of the palace, for Chang'an, for the kingdom of Tang, I don't care. You have to care, Voyaging Moon said. You're king, not Natha. You know what he is, a brute and a killer. He forced you to give up the sword. Will you let him take your people too? Can I stop him? Jen returned. Any more than I stopped him from taking Yuan Ming's gift? I don't know, Voyaging Moon said, but you'd better start thinking about it and about your father. He never lost hope that you'd come back. He counted on you to rule wisely in the palace. I told him I knew you would. He was happy with that and at peace. You saw my father? You were here then? I was with him when he died, Voyaging Moon said quietly. I told him about our betrothal. He was glad. He gave us his blessing. Yes, I came to Chang'an, she went on. I've been looking everywhere for you. Finally, I knew I couldn't find you on my own. I needed more help. I thought your father could give it, and so he'd have done had there been time. I'm surprised they let you into the palace, Mafu put in. You've had no idea how hard it is to gain an audience. Well, not for Lady Shadow behind a screen, Voyaging Moon grinned immodestly. Her reputation traveled as far as she did. The famous, mysterious flute girl with the news of the young Lord Prince, they all fell over themselves opening the gates. And you, dearest Jen, Voyaging Moon continued, turning to him, I played for you wherever I went, hoping you'd hear. Now, I wish I hadn't, because all it did was draw Natha's attention. He knew of Lady Shadow behind a screen. To find her in the palace, What an unexpected prize for him! All the more since he remembered me from the cavern. He remembered me all too well, pig. He really gloated over finding me again. He's been keeping me under lock and key. Plum Blossom, too. Voyaging Moon put a hand on the old woman's arm. Poor soul, I saw her limping along the road in the midst of a snowstorm. I took her into my carriage. She told me about her granddaughter and the young stranger who gave her a kite. So I knew at least you hadn't drowned in the low. I meant to do Plum Blossom a service, taking her with me to Chang'an to get help from your father. Now she's in the same pickle as we are. Now, if you notice figurative language again, you are correct. When it says, now she's in the same pickle as we are, have you ever heard that expression that someone's in a pickle? It means that they're having a real problem of some kind. Well, it's a common expression, and you know what we call common expressions. If you said an idiom, you are correct. Natha has no grievance against her, Jen said. Why should he do her any harm? For myself, that's a different matter. He'll have to get rid of me. I'm surprised he hasn't done it already. I'm surprised he even let me see you. He's not one to do favors. That, said Voyaging Moon, was my idea. I struck a bargain with him. He agreed to give me a few hours with you. Royally generous. He thinks himself quite the king, but he's still the same arrogant ruffian. Worse, he's gone a little mad on top of everything else. I've heard he talks to his sword. He struts and preens enough to turn your stomach. He wanted an ornament for the palace, something to flaunt and boast about. In this case, Lady Shadow behind a screen. That's my part of the bargain, Voyaging Moon added. I told him that I would marry him. Seriously? Can you guys believe it? Noble sacrifice, terrible bargain. Has Jen found Voyaging Moon only to lose her along with his life? What hope at all for him? Can a desperate situation turn worse? It can and does. To learn how, go on to the next chapter. So I will be posting another of the chapters on Monday. If you could do a huge favor and respond back to the Flipgrid videos, they are very short videos and you can re-record if you don't like your first answer. But what I'm doing is I'm asking you the questions and having you talk through your response on the Flipgrid video instead of having to type them out. So you're welcome. And so hopefully I can get a feel for how you're understanding the chapter and we can get a chance to have you review some of the important ideas before we do our projects. So again, I would love to see your faces on those videos. I miss seeing your faces, and so please do get on and respond that way. Have a good night. Have a wonderful weekend with your family, and I will be on again Monday with another chapter. Good night.